Hey everybody, it's Josh Welgus again here with,
Josh Carlson.
that's right, that is who he is. And we are going to talk, we've been talking about burncycle throughout this series of videos. There's a few things we haven't covered, and we wanted to use this fifth video to cover the odds and ends of things that we've missed. And I would say one of those actually, which is a huge mechanic in the game, is the use of action dice
Yep.
and the acquisition of action points, or AP, within the game based on those action dice. So I think it would be really good for you to talk about how that works. We've covered that they, in that first video we talked about how they serve as your durability. Rather than health chips in this game, you've got power that determines how many action dice you have, and also your durability. As you take hits in the game from guards, you'll be losing power that you have saved in your power bank. But again, rolling those action dice serves as like kind of the primary mechanism for doing a whole bunch of stuff in the game. So why don't you talk about that?
All right, cool. Well, this is a mechanic in the game that I think has gotten more and more exciting for me as it's developed. It mainly because your basic AP dice, which are your power, right now I have 5 locked. They become kind of the most versatile of your AP dice because they're used in so many different ways. Even though they're like the least chance of successful rolls of AP, they can be used in so many ways that you want to maintain a healthy amount of this base level of dice. But let's get so that makes a little more sense to you. Let's just give an example of an attempt to get to this first door, and I'll talk you through that a little bit. So the first thing that's needed in order to make any type of action is an action token within the burn cycle. We won't get into the bonuses right now, so let's just say that I'm entering the burn cycle at this tech action token. I'm going to go ahead and use that to move, so there's no bonus granted to me. So now that's aside. Now I have to decide how many AP dice I'm committing to that. Well, I have 5 basic AP dice available to me. I have 1 upgraded die available to me.
What's the difference between the basic and the upgraded dice?
So yeah, the basic dice have 2 chances for a miss. They have 3 1s and a 2. So there's 1 kind of like a crit or success. The upgraded ones eliminate all misses. So now you're guaranteed to do something with this die. Now, that's a good and a bad thing. There's 3 1s, 2 2s, and a 3. Okay. Whatever dice I choose to commit to this action, if I roll a success, I am required to spend that within this action.
Or lose it. Spend or lose.
Or lose it, sure. So when you're choosing your dice, you don't want to overcommit, and so it becomes very quickly about calculating your ranges of what is potentially possible, what you're okay with wasting in a sense if you roll really good. And that also depends on the board makeup, because I can if I use or roll really high, at least with a movement, I can use some of those extra APs to move the control module as well. So that's definitely beneficial and something I would factor into my determination on how many dice to roll.
So in this case, you're trying to move how many spaces?
I'm trying to move from, let's do access here. I'm trying to move 1, 2, 3, 4 to get to the lobby door. And I want to ensure that I do that in 1 action, preferably. So I'm going to grab the no miss die for this one, and I'm going to go ahead and add 3. That's risky. 4. I'm going to add 4 dice to that. So that leaves me with 1 action die in my pool at the start of the game to potentially do something else.
So again, if all of these roll as a success, we know he's got 1 guaranteed success with his upgraded die, and he's got a bunch that may miss. If they miss, they go back to his action pool, and he can use them on a further turn within the burn cycle. Any of them that are rolled, and he just rolled 100% success.
Yeah, so like this is a great example. I rolled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 AP that I can associate to any of these. So I'm going to go ahead and move my 4. I'm going to move the control module 2. And so that's awesome, but I actually only needed 4. if 2 of these had come up misses, I would have been able to put them right back into my pool for future burn cycle actions. So again, the amount that you're rolling and whether you're hoping that they all hit or some of them hit, it all kind of it matters.
Yeah.
And your bot and what they can do, some of their skills also play with that.
Right. So thematically speaking, also, we are a team of bots that has been being ruled by humans, and we are trying to take control of ourselves back from the humans. So at the beginning of the game, when you're starting with almost all basic AP dice, there is a little bit of, there's a little bit of luck in whether or not we can do that. We're trying to kind of like work it out, figure it out. As the game progresses and you gain additional power and you start to convert that into more reliable dice, thematically speaking and mechanically speaking, you start to gain more and more and more and more control over your actions. Again, on the flip side, as we've talked about several times, the threat starts to go up, and now the corporation is fighting back in more and more significant ways at the same time. So it's a really cool dynamic where the threat and your control are kind of meeting in the middle to create this really interesting tension. Speaking of threat, let's talk about how that works a little bit, because the threat is really significant in the flavor of each corporation, and we haven't talked about how that works all that much.
Sure. We mentioned earlier that each corporation has a CEO, and that CEO is one and the same with the corporation. Like, they're seen kind of as the same thing. And the CEO itself, he or she does not have stats. They are existing on that top floor. You're trying to gain access to their chambers through accessing a key on the top floor. They're working within the system and within the game right from the start. So when you're accessing the network, the CEO is sitting at the center, the network core, and they're sending out pings. That's one of the ways the CEO interacts. But this card here, which is your threat card, is unique to the corporation that you're playing against. It actually gets slipped in here underneath.
Just like your bots.
Yep. And it lines up the things, the events and the escalation levels that trigger line up with the numbers on the threat meter here. When you fight Need Chain and you try to reach the top floor, all the things that are happening to you are very Need Chain-esque. Like, they are things that are unique. Need Chain specifically happens to have little bits and pieces of all of the other corporations mixed in. Shutting down your burn cycle, guards coming out, extra guards coming out, pings getting thrown into the network, lockdowns on your burn cycle. They're just, it's a myriad of things. Whereas Solida is going to force you onto the network. Like, it's a very different play style. Like, while you do need to get into the building in order to get to the top floor, you're constantly with that corporation finding yourself called back to the network to deal with threats that are happening here, which is different than Biodefend, our add-on, where it's focused largely on the guards.
On the guards, yep.
So
they are a weapons manufacturing company, so specifically anti-bot weapons. And so obviously their guards are going to have a lot of those weapons in tow, and that's gonna start to flavor the game. So if you've played too many bones, you know how a tyrant will flavor an adventure. These corporations are sort of that taken up a few different notches, because you literally have different rooms and things like that are going to be coming with each corporation that you won't see at all in other corporations, which is really cool. I think so. We talked also about how AP are used to move. AP are used in a number of different ways throughout the game. So again, you have those dice that you're going to be rolling. You're going to have successes. You're going to have some failures. You're able to upgrade them to make them more and more reliable. What are some of the other ways that AP might be spent in Burn Cycle?
So AP is going to be spent at terminal accesses. When you access these little chips that we talked about here, they're going to have potentially security checks that you have to do a roll for, but then also certain things that you can do within there, like accessing the comm system or a terminal cache. That's one that allows you to draw mod cards for your bot. A lot of different ways, and with this, it's again that assessment of how aggressive do you want to go. You know you need 5 AP for that. Do you want to guarantee it? Because usually you can, but then that might mean giving up a future action because you just ran out of AP dice.
Sure.
So it's all about maximizing your turn and doing as much as you can within that turn with the AP dice that you're allotted. The other thing would be wireless access, where you're accessing from anywhere. You don't need to get to a terminal to access this. But the penalty here is that it's 2 action dice of any kind paid right off the top. So
Not
this
not an
is,
AP roll. You're just literally paying.
you're paying 2 dice, and it goes, those are now expended to get onto the network. And so again, how you potentially there's things that you can seek through equipment or through abilities that would allow you to dodge that security check, things like that. But yeah, again, that's a few of the ways. Accessing doors is another one.
Accessing doors is another. I would imagine that some of the bot skills and some of the equipment and mods are going to consume AP in order to take advantage of what they can bring to the table as well.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah.
And then, like, again, losing this power is kind of instrumental in the game. We haven't really talked about the guards and how the guards interact with you. Up to this point, I think the assumption has been that you're just trying to steer clear of the guards. This is a sneaking, around. You're trying to stay out of sight so that your threat doesn't go up. Threat goes up if you're spotted, so you do want to stay out of sight. However, if there are going to be times where you're going to just have to engage with the guard, and it is possible to completely take out a guard, and you get power for that. So, I mean, you could go on a seek and destroy mission yourself if you felt like you had, the right composition for it. Usually, in order to do that, it's by way of a nice piece of equipment that you can kind of pair with other things. But oftentimes that equipment at its best rolls will break.
Sure.
And therefore, it's kind of a short-lived ability.
Sure.
In that way. But sometimes very worth it to remove that obstacle.
Sure. I think that covers most things. I think one other thing though that we haven't talked about at all. I have these chips sitting right in front of me with little eyeballs on them.
Yep.
And we're talking about guards. So what do these chips do, and how does being spotted by a guard work?
So basically, those are your awareness tokens, and those are unique to each bot. So each bot comes with one. When you're spotted, let's just put this guard here for a second. When you're spotted by moving within a guard's awareness range, this guard's awareness range is 6. Where he's facing, he's going to be able to see 6 spaces away. But that's only in the direction that he's facing. If he was turned this way and headed back down the hall, his awareness range is cut in half in any other direction. So he does not know you're there. However, here, headed that way, he does know you're there. So if you had somehow come out around this corner, come out this door and ran this direction, the minute you leave his awareness range, that awareness token drops.
Basically, the last place you were spotted.
Yep, exactly. And in that process of being spotted here, because you're not spotted through any kind of door, doors are always closed. They're just only unlocked or locked or jammed.
Yep.
So, but once you came out into the hall here, he spotted you. That's where the alert or the threat went up. And then as you left his awareness range, he is now going to pursue that spot. So he's going to abandon his patrol, he's going to turn around, and he's going to go to that spot. If at that point he doesn't see you, he's not actually going to pursue you anymore. Keep in mind that this isn't like an infiltration game where if you're spotted, like the whole building goes, alarms trigger and like game over because you were spotted. This is a building full of bots performing their duties and everything. And when you're in that building, the assumption is that you're there performing a task. So the only time that you're triggering threat is when you're doing something that's like unusual. And so if you're running through a hall and that's not something that you're typically designated to do because you're using your burn cycle to kind of circumvent your actions that you've been required to perform, that's when the guard says, something's up here. We're going to note that. I'm going to check it out. And the threat, trickles upward. So yeah, that's kind of like the difference there is that they're slowly becoming aware that something is not right.
Right. We are not part of a mass universal bot rebellion here where the entire world of bots is suddenly rebelling against the humans. We are part of a very small sort of, rebel group of bots that has found a way to circumvent our programming and try to take back some control from the humans. This is the first chapter of what hopefully will become a much larger story. Anything else you want to say about the game before we wrap it up? I mean, we're going to have a full playthrough that I'm sure most of you will watch.
That's where we'll explain probably the next amount of stuff.
Fantastic. So that is the conclusion of our 5-piece, video set about how burncycle works and a few specific things about it. We hope you'll watch the playthrough. We hope you've enjoyed this, and we hope that you are excited to back this game because we are excited to bring it to you next year. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.